All right, today I'm with the train crew of 225. We made the last trip over the Chalk River Subdivision from Smith Falls to Chalk River on April the 23rd, 2009. Conductor George Francis and engineman Sean Mulvihill. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, gentlemen, first question. When you were ordered for train 225, did you know at the time that you were going to be the last train operating over the Chalk River Sub? George.
Yes, was advised by the supervisor at North Bay. As he called us, he advised us that it was the last train. Linford Costello was his name, and we were told to pick up everything that we could lift between Smith Falls and Chalk River. And that was our duty for the day.
Sean?
Yep. Yeah, it was Linford Costello that called us, and he advised me the same. We were ordered for 12:30 on that day, so we were called around 10:30. I remember for me it was sort of a surprise call. Wasn't really sure if we were going to be going or not. It was uncertain on the lineup, so when I got the call and he told me that, then we knew for sure that this was the end.
What were your thoughts when you were going over the Chalk River for the last time, George?
I was not certain that it was going to be the last time, considering the fact that the way things were going, OBR or Rail America and CP were in a little disagreement over the cars, the trains, and we were advised a couple of days ahead about some problems, may not be running, may be running. So it was one of those ones where we were picking the traffic up to clear the line, but there may be a slight chance. We didn't find out till a long time after that was the exact situation.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, I second what George said there for sure. It was sort of uncertain, you know. I did recall though that I had a conversation with the senior manager in North Bay prior to that trip, and I got the indication from him that things were looking pretty grim, like that CP was really pulling the plug on this. So when I got that from him, and I'm sure he was connected in Calgary, that it wasn't looking too promising. I got a feeling that this was the end, and then we got called for that last train, and Linford made a point of saying it was in fact the last train to run west. Sort of had that feeling that this could well be it, and it was.
I got to ask you here, when you left Smith Falls, what kind of a train did you have, and where did you pick up and where along the way?
We had a short train somewhere around the 3,000 foot mark. Our instructions were to pick everything up, and I was able to pick up at Carlton Place, cleaned that siding out. We went to Pakenham. There was one car in there we had to lift. Our next lift was at Haley's. There was a bunch of storage cars there. We lifted all them. Nothing at Cobden. We went right through to mile 108. There was a whole bunch of cars at Camspur at mile 105, and because of time, our time for working was running to its end, so we were being relieved there for another crew to take over.
Okay, Sean, apparently you had a bit of a problem with the lead unit at Smith Falls. Now I heard you had to turn the consist.
Yeah, we had 3 units. I can't recall the numbers. It was an SD40, I believe, like the 5750, and we boarded that engine. It was out down in, I believe, East 7 or East 8 in the East area. And as soon as we got on board, the aroma in the engine was not flowers, that's for sure. So we called the multi-yard and requested that we maybe look at alternatives, because the smell was
Very strong.
strong. That's well put, George. So we wired the power in Smith Falls. We went down the Brockville sub, got a clearance, and wired the power. So that turned it from being the SD40 that was supposed to lead to the I think it was a 4652.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the unit we had then leading. So once we got all that done, then we were on our way. One other thing we did do too, I think George did mention this. I'll throw this out there. I was lucky enough to we had a bit of a few minutes there to spare on the chalk, so we made a lift at mile 43. I picked up my mother, my 2 children, and took them up to Rhodey's Bay on the train, just to have them experience the last train on the Chalk River Sub 2. Since my 2 daughters will probably never see, well, definitely won't see rail through the valley again. So
Okay, Sean, as an engineman, what kind of a challenge did Chalk River give you?
Well, it was a hilly sub. It was when you had we had trains that were marshaled a lot with intermodal traffic on the head end, and then your bulk traffic on the tail end. So you had the train where you had like a lot of stretch rubbers in the middle, and you had a lot of weight at the back. So it's just like an anchor 5,000 feet back on the train. So it was a hilly sub, up and down a lot of dips, valleys, and that. So you sort of had to watch your throttle modulation and you know watch what your train was doing back there, because you could get a good snap or a good bunt. It could throw you into the glass or pull you right back, or if you're bad enough, George would be walking.
Talk about that. What was your worst grade on the Chalk River?
West end of Castleford, west end of Castleford, going up the hill there was a pretty steep hill there.
Yeah.
We'd gone up there a few times, and we were down below 15 mile an hour and still dropping. The time we crested the hill around 55, I believe it was. So there, yeah, around the scanner there. It was once you got over that hump, you knew, and you started picking up speed, you knew you were over it.
All right, George, when the both of you worked on the Chalk River for a few years on CP and OVR, just in case a lot of people don't know what OVR stands for, Ottawa Valley Railroad, did you notice any changes from the first time you went on the Chalk River to the last day you worked on the Chalk?
A lot of changes. Over the years, when I first worked up there, it was 5-man crew. Over time, it was reduced with the OVR, it was a 2-man crew. There was a caboose on the tail end. With the OVR, it was down to the SBUs. There was lots of traffic, lifting, setting off, multitude of sidings, Wool Growers, Carleton Place. There was the track at Carleton Place that took you into Ottawa. There was work to be done at Almont quite often. There was the siding at Waba was put in while I was up there because they were putting in the new generating station at Arnprior. There was Haley's, Arnprior, Haley's, Renfrew, Cobden, Pembroke. 3 places at Pembroke where we used to switch. It was very busy. When I started with OVR up in there, a lot of those businesses were closed down. It was reduced in numbers by great numbers of traffic. They used to have 2-way freights on the Chalk River. They ran opposite days to each other, going up and coming back and switching when I first worked up there. Yeah, it's and CP, when wanting to reduce their numbers, it was the boys were coming in there and they were saying, we're not getting any ties this year. We're not getting any rail upgrade this year. And that was the start that you'd see big changes.
Anything you want to add, Sean?
Well, I started a little later than George, 1988. I guess little would be, we'll leave that alone.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah. But yeah, when I started, it was with CP, and like you say, it was a 3-man crew with the caboose, and they disappeared up there. And there was a decent amount of switching up there then too. And even with OVR, we still switched. You say like Cobden, Renfrew, and the military base in Petawawa, CFB Petawawa. They got a couple of big moves there as well. When we started, I remember there was a couple of full train loads that went in and out of there quite a bit. So it stayed while I was there, pretty consistent. Not any big switches, like not 30 cars a day or anything like you see at some pulp mills and that. But yeah, that sort of did go down a little bit. But the other changes too, it seemed like they, like I say, they did the track upgrades, a lot of track upgrades near the end, surprisingly, in about 2007, 8, and that's when in 6, I guess, they did a lot of track work just prior to its closing. So it was probably in the best shape that it had ever been the day that they actually decided to close it.
George, what was your best experience you had on the Chalk River?
I think the best experience, one of a couple, was the fact to get on the train one night and we get off the train, never had to throw a switch, never had to do a thing. It was a perfect trip. And all the wildlife, moose, deer, wolves, the whole works you got to see was just phenomenal. And the other thing was the people that enjoyed seeing the trains. they'd be by the side of the tracks giving you a wave, smiling at you. It was good, and I know talking to people, there's still people that miss that train up there.
You want to add anything, Sean?
Yeah, sure. You know, it was I'd have to say, like working at CP and then, you know, going over to OVR, it was a little bit of a different, I guess, culture over there. Like, I mean, we all knew the dispatchers, you know, sort of personally, you know, because they were in the office up there, so you get chatting with them. And the other crews you knew well, you deadheaded with them and that. So it was a small group of people, smaller group, and not like CP where, you know, it's just larger numbers and you're sort of on call. This is sort of, you know, your plan. So you basically had a little bit more of a family feeling there. So it made working there more enjoyable, I'd say, you know, for that reason alone too. You know, is that everybody sort of knew everybody, and you know, if somebody was, you know, in trouble, you'd go that little extra mile to help out, if, you know, they had train problems or whatever. So sort of like a family feeling there, which I think if you ever worked for a Class 1 your whole career, and you never did experience that, you really wouldn't know what it was like. But being lucky enough to be with OVR, I was able to experience that.
George, what was your worst experience you ever had?
I think probably the worst was Sean and I got ordered for an eastbound container train one night. We left coming down, and we get down around Chalk River, and we were hitting heavy snow, and it just kept getting thicker and deeper. We had a hard time to being able to see. We were trying to scrape the window clean because the defroster wasn't doing it. And they said, we went through Pembroke, and he said, we're plowing snow at this point. It's probably 3.5 feet deep in front of us. You can't see rail. You're just lucky to be able to see the signals as we're going along. Every crossing we come to, we're double blowing them because we're not quite sure just how close we are to them. And we got further down the line, and then we run into some engine problems.
Sean?
Yeah, what had happened was we had two, I believe they were AC 4400s, two big units, and the bell started ringing. I believe it was around just east of Renfrew. So I went back and started back up, and then believe it or not, in the cold, in the middle of winter, was a hot engine. And what had happened was there was so much snow that was building up around the rad fans and the rad vents that it was actually freezing right over, so that basically the rad wasn't getting any air, so the engine was overheating. So we lost one engine, the trailing unit, going east, and the snow had, like George had mentioned, gotten worse and worse and worse. We were hitting the crossings where the snow plows would cross, and the snow, like we were just hitting a wall of snow, and we were looking through a hole in the window, looking out of the engine, you know, looking like out of a, you know, holding the side of a cabin on a ship, you know. That's all we could see. So like George said, we were blowing for crossings twice, making sure, he just kept blowing the whistle. And we got into Pakenham. We started down the hill, and I said, well, George, we'll take a run at it, and you know, we had to keep going. And we got down over the Mississippi River, back up the other side, and as soon as we got the train up the hill, it just dropped like a rock, and we stalled just probably about mile 30, I guess, or so, just between Pakenham and Almont.
The two engine lengths over the crossings,
yeah.
what's me?
So we were, that was it. We were done right there. So we actually had to just abandon the train. So George went back, and he jumped off the engine, and I think he went up waist deep in snow. Waist deep in snow, right off the engine. He couldn't even move. Like he was basically crawling on the snow to get back to make the cut. We brought some cars to clear crossing a bit forward, and then we took the power to Carleton Place, just the engines, and we even had to walk out from the crossing in Carleton Place to the main highway. I had to walk probably half a mile,
yeah,
because they didn't even have the roads plowed in Carleton Place. There was so much snow. So that was an experience, like being in the Rocky Mountains with the amount of snow, like Revelstoke. So that was quite a fiasco, that trip.
You want to add some more to it, George?
It wouldn't have been so bad, except I had to cut about 20 cars because of a private crossing, the only entrance in and out for the farmer. And I started back, and the 20 cars turned out 19 of them were container cars, the 5 and 4 pockets. So instead of cutting 20, I was cutting about 60 car lengths and here I am walking through snow to my waist. Sean's going, how are you making out? And I make cars behind the engine, Sean, and still going. It was a long trip.
I told him to bring his snowshoes, but he just didn't listen to me. I keep telling him these things.
Something you can laugh at now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Sean, let's peg you with this question.
Sure.
The Chalk River had a lot of crossings, a total of 119.
Yes, it did.
And that's a lot of crossings for a subdivision. Which crossing was the worst that you encountered and why?
All right. Well, yeah, you're right, Jock. There was a lot of crossings on the Chalk River Sub. It just felt you're blowing the whistle 14L from one end to the other pretty much, you know, and it probably never went really a week or more where you didn't actually have, you know, that feeling in your mind when you're blowing the whistle and you're looking ahead and you see a car or a truck or a transport, you know, approaching the crossing, and like you have that feeling, is he going to stop, you know? And you know, they always did, but you have, because so many crossings, so many cars, and it's so busy going through so many towns, you had that feeling, you know, in the back of your mind that, you know, is this car going to stop on a frequent occasion? But one crossing in particular was just east of Cobden around Logos Land, about mile 71, I'd say, George.
That,
yeah, we had we were heading east one trip, and we the crossing protection came on. We were about, you know, quarter mile back, started blowing the 14L, and then noticed the road and the tracks kind of came together to V, like about 45 degrees, and this tractor trailer was coming down the hill. I think it was a fuel oil truck too. So, and it was coming down the hill fast. Like, it was not any intention to stop. And by looking at it, engaging its speed, it was looking like a collision was going to happen. So, I mean, blew the whistle more and more, and finally there was a huge cloud of black smoke, and the wheels on the truck locked up when he finally realized, the driver, that you know, there's a collision going to happen here. And he just got stopped probably 15 feet from the crossing. Yeah, and we kept going. I didn't plug it. But that crossing there, that experience, you know, especially when you're dealing with a fuel oil truck, it definitely, you know, that was a bad crossing for sure for me.
What about you, George?
I'd say the next major crossing on the highway just west of Cobden, about mile 78 on the old Chalk Sub.
Yeah.
For years it was known as a bad crossing. It was flat. They built a highway overpass on it back in the early 70s. In the late 80s, early 90s, they started having problems with it, and finally it ended up, they decided, instead of trying to repair it because it was going to be too much cost, they just remove it and go back to the flat crossing, which they did, and they ended up putting gates in. They thought the gates would cure the problem. But there was still two incidents I had there where one car, I think early morning, winter time, his windows weren't cleaned enough. He took off one of the gates, cleaned out his windshield. He didn't even know it was there until after he hit it. The police were able to get him because he wasn't going anywhere. But there was a second one, and it was in that same year in the summer. It was a tractor trailer, and he was going along beside us on the highway as we were going west approaching that crossing. And he decided to race it. He's got a full tractor trailer, and he thought he could snake around the gates, clean both gates off. Just lucky nobody was on the other side, or he'd end up, the trailer would hit somebody on the other side.
Yeah.
So I'd say that probably was the worst crossing for me.
Smith Falls is a hub for the CPR, going in all different directions: Belleville, Brockville, Winchester, Chalk River, all subdivisions. Which one did you prefer working for or working with, Sean?
Yeah, I worked all the subs with CP before OVR started up, and they all were unique. But personally, to me, the Chalk River sub and part of the North Bay sub was probably my preferred end. Yeah, once I worked for the OVR up there for a couple of years, got to really know the territory well, and it was challenging. A lot of hills up and down, and of course there was some switching there too. So it brought in a lot of different parts of the job there all in one. So and the scenery up there too was probably, I'd say, out of the three ends, the most scenic. Along the Otter River, Castleford was nice, and up in the North Bay up through the bush, seeing wildlife, and that was enjoyable. So I'd have to put it up there as probably my preferred end out of the terminal.
George.
I kind of have to agree with Sean. The Belleville was kind of nice because it basically was a get on, get off, and you had more time at home because of the way the mileage system worked. But the one that seemed to be the best was the Chalk River, because you were doing some switching. You had scenery that was different than what we had normally around this area, and it made it kind of nice to be able to get out, see moose, see bear, do your switching, get back home and have that little break. Chalk River, a little more challenged and a little more enjoyable. You got away from the boredom of just get on the engine and sit there for 8-9 hours or more and nothing. You had to get off and do the work. That was the good point about it.
On the last answer that you've given me, you were mentioning about scenic areas and what have you. Now, I know when I come down here, when I go to the Chalk River Sub, I always love to go to Almont, kind of the old cement bridge, the old grist mill. I love taking pictures of trains going by. Now, you've seen a lot of rail fans. Where would you say the best location is for rail fans?
A lot of them were at the bridge at Almont. They give them that extra view of the engines and cars coming across with the water flowing underneath. Up on the chalk further up, I'd say Haley's, just on the other side of Haley's. There was a place there that they used to catch us coming around the curve, coming out of the incline that we were climbing up there. Further up at Cobden, just above Cobden, there was a good flat stretch, and they used to get in sit a couple of the crossings there, and they could get a long view of the train down the track. And the other one was just beyond that, around that crossing around 71, where we used to go over mud. What was that river?
Muskrat River?
Muskrat River, yeah.
Yeah.
They catch us coming on the curve there.
17.
Yeah, and
right
I was
there,
17.
Yeah, there was people there, yeah.
Sean.
Yeah, I remember for sure all the places George just mentioned, and in addition as well through Castleford, just east of Castleford and west of Castleford and those curves. There was quite a few. There was on occasion rail fans that would be in there trying to get pictures with you could see the engine and the train through the curves there with the Otter River and in the background there. So especially in the fall, they were there quite frequently. And I also remember at Chalk River platform, the station, there was I think rail fans from up in that area, Pembroke area, and that were up there and got pictures in the Chalk River area, especially on the platform at the old station. I remember that in there.
It basically boiled down to if there was a crossing, there could be somebody standing there taking pictures.
Yeah,
it happened quite often.
That's for sure. Of note, Mr. Chapman was probably one of the most frequent flyer miles for photographs on the Chalk River Sub. I'd say he wins first prize on that one.
I know Bruce got a lot of albums.
He sure does.
It'll take you 10 years to go through all them pictures. Right, Bruce? Gentlemen, when you got off the train 225 at mileage 108 because you ran out of time, and you did head back to Smith Falls by taxi, what was your thoughts and your feeling about the being the last train on the Chalk River Sub? George?
We really didn't know at that time whether it was the last train. We were being told by, what's his name that called us?
Darryl?
No,
Linford.
Linford Costello called us for work that day and said about picking all the traffic up, that this was going to be it. But at that point, they really hadn't made a definite statement that we were done. So it was kind of saddening, and we were discussing it on the train going up, and there again discussing it coming home in the taxi about, we just hoped that they sat down and did some more negotiating, because to see it gone, like that was jobs gone. There was young people, young families that they're the employees, and they were going to lose no more income. They'd have to find something else. So it made it kind of sad in one aspect, that you're taking the last one, but at the same time still hoping that it wasn't the last one.
Sean?
Yeah, I second what George said there. It was, I mean, we weren't told for sure. There was pretty strong indications that it would be the last train, and I mean, we were lifting all the traffic on route and basically cleaning up the Chalk River Sub and emptying all the back tracks out. So when you see what we were doing, it sort of gave us that impression that when we were done on the sub, that it was basically going to be wrapped up. So I brought my camera with me and took a few extra pictures, and we had Bruce Chapman following us up and taking pictures, and I did the same. I took lots of pictures for the history books because he pretty well knew that there's a good chance this might be it. And
you got the two girls on the train too.
And yeah, I had my two daughters on the last train as well. But the Chalk River Sub. So that's something they'll remember for hopefully a long time. But yeah, we pretty well had a gut feeling that this probably was going to be it.
Now you talk about Bruce Chapman. I know he's a real hawk at with a camera.
He sure is.
What do you think of him?
Bruce is a good lad. I worked with him quite a few years. He was an operator and dispatcher at Smith Falls. Then they closed the dispatching office. Bruce moved with the dispatching at that time. And the opportunity came for him to go to Power Bureau in Montreal, and he jumped into it. And the nice part with Bruce, you just answered the phone. Hello, Bruce. Yes. Caboose? Yes. 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 Engines? Yes. 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 He rattled them all off you unless you said, oh no, we used that one. Oh, where'd they go? Other than that, he was a good lad. He still is. Very fine gentleman.
What are you going to say about him, Sean?
Oh, I remember him a few trips back in the late 80s, early 90s in the Power Bureau in Montreal, and then just got to meet him actually more on the Chalk River Sub, taking countless pictures of us, and meet him on occasion during meets and that when he'd be at a crossing waiting for us to pull out after a train went by. So he was a really good guy. Always nice to talk to, upbeat, positive. Yeah.
Got his first train ride on the last train on the Chalk River Sub. Had never been on an engine in his life till that day. We had to stop and lift at Haley's. He hopped on and rode and talked with Sean while I got the cars ready to lift, and then he got back off when we were getting ready to pull out.
I was shocked at that, actually. I thought he was a used car salesman at that point. But apparently it's true. With the number of pictures he'd taken, he'd never actually been on an engine for a ride before. So, yeah.
I think I was drunk the day I got married because he was my best man.
Oh, you picked a good best man.
That's
for sure.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I want to thank you very much for the interview. I know it's kind of hard to try to get the both of you together. I want to really thank you very much. Now, George, I hear you're retired now.
Yes.
And I heard your new job is going to be supporting golf.
Yes, I do support golf. I think they've hired a third shift on the golf ball factory when I started.
I hear you're going to try to beat Tiger Woods.
That never going to be able to reach that status.
And Sean, you're not quite sure what's going to happen there at over at CP right
now. Been there for a year. Worked the Brockville Road Switcher for pretty much last year. And yeah, there's new leadership at CP, so nobody's really sure what's going to happen at this point. It has been a little bit slow, but I think there's going to be some pretty major changes in the company, so we're uncertain at this point where it's going to lead.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. And by the way, the interview was done right at George Francis' backyard in Smith Falls. And gentlemen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.